You're listening to Beyond the Plate with Andrew Kaplan. This sounds so weird. You're listening to Beyond the Plate with Cappy.
Hey everyone, this is Cappy, and you are listening to Just the Plate, a production of Beyond the Plate. Just the Plate is a short segment where chefs describe a recipe, sharing insider tips and tricks on what makes this their favorite dish. Last week you heard from Chef Eric Ripert of famed seafood restaurant in New York City, Le Bernardin. In 1995, at just 29 years old, Ripert earned a 4-star rating from the New York Times. 20 years later, and for the 5th consecutive time, Le Bernardin again earned the New York Times highest rating of 4 stars, becoming the only restaurant to maintain this status for this length of time without ever dropping a star. I'm not really going to go on and explain anything further about Chef Ripert because if you missed last week's episode, I highly encourage you to check that out. But in this episode, Chef Ripert shares what else? A seafood recipe. It's his seared tuna with a soy ginger vinaigrette and baby bok choy, and it's doable. You can make this at home. Ripert is arguably the best seafood chef in the country, maybe the world. So you're in for a treat because you're about to learn tons of tips from a 4-star chef. I'll stop talking, but this is Just the Plate.
My name is Eric Ripert. I'm the chef of Le Bernardin. And the dish I will describe, because I'm the chef of a seafood restaurant, will be seared tuna with a soy ginger vinaigrette and baby bok choy. So first of all, you have to find a great quality tuna. We use yellowfin tuna because it's sustainable. I suggest that we cut steaks of about an inch thick. We season them on both sides with salt, pepper, herbe de Provence. So herbe de Provence is a mix of aromatic herbs that very often integrate in a mix some thyme, rosemary, oregano, and other aromatics like that. A bit of olive oil and let it rest while you do the rest of the preparation. So the soy ginger vinaigrette, it's what we call a broken vinaigrette. So technically, you have 2 types of vinaigrettes. You have emulsified vinaigrettes, which have a certain consistency, a creaminess, and then you have broken vinaigrette where you have in the bottom the aromatic liquid or the acidity and on top the oil. So it's basically separated. So for that vinaigrette, I take a shallot, I mince the shallot very thinly, and then I squeeze on top of the shallot in a bowl lime juice. So for 1 shallot, assuming that we cook for 4 people and we have 4 steaks of tuna, I need about a shallot or 2 minced very thinly. On top of it, 2 or 3 lime juice. Then I add a little bit of sherry vinegar, aged sherry vinegar, maybe about a teaspoon of it. And then I let the shallot and the vinegar and the lime macerate together because it takes the oniony flavor from the shallot that is very strong, but you still keep the consistency, like the crunch of the shallot and the texture, and you still have the flavor, but it's not overwhelming. Then I add maybe a tablespoon of grated ginger in it. And after that, I cover it with some olive oil. So if we have about 3 limes squeezed on top and a bit of sherry vinegar, I will say I double the liquid in quantity with the olive oil. And I let it rest like that. Then we find the baby bok choy. They need to be cleaned. So you remove the big leaves, cut a little bit at the root, wash them very well. And then what I do usually is I blanch them very, very quickly in salted water, boiling salted water, remove them from the water when the leaves start to be a little bit tender. But I want the heart of the bok choy to be crunchy. It's a level of awareness that you have to have, that you don't want the heart of the bok choy to be raw, but you want to be a bit of texture, so crunchy, and the leaves on the outside are still green but tender. If you don't have baby bok choy, you use the bigger ones and you split them in half. And actually, it's simpler to see when they're cooked because with a blade, you can go through the bok choy, and if you have a lot of resistance from it, it means it's not cooked enough, and if it's very easily, it's very easy to go through the bok choy, it means it's overcooked. The tuna is seared in a very, very hot pan or on a grill if you have a grill or a griddle. And it's seared really, really, really nicely, quickly. I don't want a very thick crust. I want just to sear it to give a little bit of that smokiness and cook the herbe de Provence. And then I flip the tuna, so maybe 1 minute and a half on a very high heat. And then I flip the tuna, another minute max. And what I do sometimes to make sure that the tuna is still rare, I always serve tuna rare, but I don't serve it raw, not cold in the center. So I take a metal skewer, I go through the flesh of the tuna, and then I touch my hand and make sure that the skewer is warm. And that will give me the information that the tuna is rare, but not cold in the center. I take 4 plates. I put the bok choys either way in the center or sometimes around. The tuna is sliced. So the tuna steaks, I have 4 steaks. I slice it in 3 or 4 pieces each and put it next to the bok choy. And then the soy ginger vinaigrette, I go with a tablespoon inside the bowl. I mix a little bit the ingredients, and I make sure that I take from the bottom the dressing. Actually, I forgot the soy, which is, for a soy ginger vinaigrette, is important. I put the soy right after the vinegar and the lime juice, but you can put it after the olive oil if you wish, but do not forget the soy sauce. So the amount of soy sauce that goes in that dressing is probably 2 tablespoons, maybe 2.5 tablespoons. And then when it's time to drizzle the dressing around the tuna, I make sure that I mix well from the bottom to have a little bit of ginger, a little bit of shallot, the soy sauce and the acidity. And of course, the olive oil naturally stays on top, and you can sprinkle that around the fish. I never put the sauce on top of the fish because I like to keep the purity of the tuna, the flavors, and everyone can, at his discretion, take a piece of the fish and go in a sauce and test it like that. And it's a very simple recipe that I do very often at home.
Find more on Chef Eric Ripert at ericripert.com or le-bernardin.com. That's LE-BERNARDIN.com. This episode was produced by Ian Cohen, Joe Yeaton, and myself. You can find me and keep up to date with this podcast across all social media platforms at On Cappy's Plate or go to beyondtheplatepodcast.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast on your listening site of choice. Thank you for listening to Just the Plate, a production of Beyond the Plate. I'm Cappy.